Hey guys, thanks for checking out the podcast. Before we get started, I want to remind you about the very cool bucket list trip I am doing in 2026, the Smitty Learns Irish podcast, where I'm going to do my bucket list, hike Ireland for a year, learn about Irish history, town by town, through the mouths of the pub owners and regulars. Because what's a better way to learn about something you love than to experience it yourself? Patreon.com/we3Smiths, only $3 a month, and thanks for checking it out.
1, 2, 3, 1.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4.
20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, go! 3, 2, 1, action!
What the hell, everything? Oh my goodness, happy What the Hell Everything Day, along with great friend, Christal Frost Anderson. How are you?
I was going to say, who's your great friend? I'm just here.
Good friend. We'll do it. Christal, when was the last time you put headphones on or talked into a microphone?
My gosh, I don't know. Well, it actually hasn't been that long because I still do some voice work, and my husband and I have a production company. So
You do?
yeah, we do some videos.
And I don't know how. See, Facebook sucks because, like, honestly, I follow your stuff.
Yeah?
The more people that you follow and like, and then you see more of those things. And I know that I've enjoyed the content you've put out, but I haven't seen it in a while. I don't know if like Facebook is just screwing.
No,
with,
I mean,
with the system.
I got out of radio,
Yeah.
you know, like
Bless your heart for
April.
it. Bless your heart for it.
And I kind of stopped using social media. Because you know how it is. I mean, you have a podcast. You have to be always out there all the time.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, it's everything everywhere all at once. That's exactly what it is. Not just a movie. It's an actual thing that happens for people in media where you have to put your stuff out everywhere just to get people to remember you. So, I mean, as far as our business, though, we just have a lot of clients that we do content for. So I'm not doing a ton of my own stuff anymore.
Right. But essentially, I mean, you're putting together internet ads essentially for clients.
Yeah.
And you're very good. Like, they're
thank you.
very well produced, funny, from what I've seen. I don't know how many are intended to be funny. I don't know.
Some of them are just not funny.
By design.
Yeah, well, I mean, not everybody wants us to be all parody funny, right? Some people are like, I just want you to do this. And we do.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, it's the next sort of like step for businesses. Because traditional media is not as strong as it once was.
No.
More people, honestly, and I don't want to get into like inner workings or anything like that with like radio stations, but like internet content. You know what I mean? You were heavy on internet content. I was heavy on internet content.
Yeah.
I don't want to ask how well embraced it was at your last station, which was Midwest.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the inner workings necessarily, but at some point it's got to just feel like I'm doing all this stuff, and it's just like I could be doing it for myself.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, but I'm a firm believer in, audiences. You have to mobilize your audience, and with mobilizing audiences, it means meeting them where they are. So if I had a built-in audience on a radio station, I'm not going to tell that audience to go to a podcast. I'm going to build the podcast for a new audience, and that's how you do it.
That's essentially what I decided when I first started doing the What the Hell Everything podcast.
Right.
It was essentially extra content with Tim for the radio show. And hopefully, in theory, people would like the podcast and they would tune into the radio show. That was kind of like the idea behind it, And honestly, it's not as well received that way when you have bosses that are like, wait a second, this is totally different than what we're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Well, I didn't have that. I mean, when I was at Midwestern, I mean, they were so cool. Like, do what you want. You know, I mean, did a lot of freelance stuff. Yeah. I mean, I did freelance stuff for 9 and 10, which is a totally different, you know, that's a TV station, and I would do freelance writing. And
Are you still doing that?
Nope, not doing that anymore. But I did that while I was working for Midwestern, and they were just like, cool. Get your
By
name out there.
happenstance, the only 2 guests I've had on the new Smith Hole essentially have some sort of working with 9 and 10. Michael Stevens was in here last.
Oh, yeah, Michael Stevens.
He's my neighbor. He lives right up the street.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is he still there?
Yeah. He does the afternoon. He does afternoons now.
Yeah.
He's not on in the mornings anymore with Lawrence Scafidi. It's a real bummer.
That is a bummer.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't pay attention to things anymore. It's so bad. You get out of the business for just 6 months, and now, I mean, because I have a new job, and I think it's a really big, important job, but I might just be, you know, making it sound bigger than it is. But like, it's all that I've been focused on. I forget about things.
Well, for me, it was just like you're so heavily involved in like pop culture, and you're scanning things every day and news. In a time we were talking about what got you through the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, you said community, and I'm like, oh, you're so community minded. No, you meant the show.
Yeah, Community,
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah, the show. But like, especially during that time, finding news stories all the time.
Oh, man.
In an industry and job where you're not supposed to talk about politics or anything remotely controversial, you know?
Well, like, so during the pandemic, I was on 2 stations. So I was on there was an FM morning show, and yeah, we weren't talking a lot about politics or news or anything like that. But then I had my talk show on the news side. So that's all I would talk about was news and politics.
Yes, yeah.
And I mean, talking about politics, believe me, I think everybody will understand this. That is soul crushing at times, because I'm a firm believer that we need to like really, we don't have to agree with everyone, but we have to acknowledge the perspective of everyone, because that's your identity. I mean, you might believe something that you believe because of the circumstances, you know, of your life, and there's nothing wrong with that. So let's just say, okay, that's okay. You have that point of view. I have this point of view. We don't, you know, meet up. But I'm not going to say you're an evil person over it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that, you know, you deserve to burn in hell or something. I mean, and people have replaced, I believe, their religion with their politics.
It's just a different form of extremism.
Sure.
Yeah, you know.
And I mean, it's a belief system, right?
Yeah, it's like that. I don't know if you saw that Facebook post I had the other day. I went in a family fair, you know,
Yeah.
it was like an episode of Would You Rather, where I legit, I'm just minding my own business, and I'm looking for French onion dip, and this lady just out of nowhere is just like, did you know they took the Indian off of Land O'Lakes butter? And I'm like, oh yeah, well good, it's about time, you know.
Yeah. I'd like to get some Native American perspective on that, though, because I have my brother-in-law is Native, and he's like, kind of feels weirder that they just took it off. Like,
yeah,
we'll just erase you.
That's the thing, and I tried to explain it, and I didn't really try to explain this, perhaps, but she said, well, that's what they're famous for. And I'm like, well, there's all kinds of people that do stupid things that they're famous for. Maybe enough people have a problem with it that maybe take a look at changing it, you know, was the point of it. But it's like, for 75%, I don't know what the numbers would be or whatever, you know, Native Americans.
Right.
If let's just say, for the sake of argument, 75% hate it.
Yeah.
And 25% are like, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a different perspective. I can't hate their perspective while embracing that perspective too.
Exactly.
Because there are people that I've never been in that position.
You know, I think it's interesting too. Hopefully that lady walked away with like, you know, going, I never thought about things that way. Because I think that's really how people change. You're not going to, you know, change someone's opinion arguing on Facebook, right? You're not going to change their perspective at all. But someone saying, wow, well, how about this? And then you go, I never considered that. And then you walk away. She may never change her mind. But in the back of her mind, she might go, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, that's the thing, if
Making change.
if you're gonna like essentially confront somebody because she doesn't know, and I honestly feel like it's because I'm white. If I do, am I just blending in here?
Yeah.
You just assume because I have like, I don't even think it looks like a military jacket, but it's like a canvas jacket. Do I look like I'm an ally or something? I don't even know what goes through people's heads when they just spew these things out to you in public.
Right. Or is it like, can you believe they got rid of this, rebrand or whatever? I don't know. I remember when that was going through with the Dr. Seuss books. And the funny thing was, and they had like taken away from some of these. They didn't take them away. They were not book banning Dr. Seuss, but they stopped reproducing these certain Dr. Seuss books.
Yeah.
And the reason they did it is because they weren't selling a lot. It wasn't because they were, it's controversial or whatever. But people find out about that and they go, oh my gosh, it's because it has XYZ in it or whatever. And then you go, well, no, let's look a little deeper. Like, move your focus out a little more and you'll find out, no, it's actually because they weren't selling.
Yeah.
That's why. Was it because, they were, I don't know, they had something to do with race or something, right?
Yeah. It's honestly, it's all about the perspective, like you said.
Yeah.
It
is. But it's also like you have to stop for a second because what we're doing right now, and I see this all over. I mean, we're getting ready for an election, whatever. I'm not going to comment on that. But I see all of these people who are just talking at each other because you've gotten your own echo chamber, right? So you only follow people who like what you like and say what you like and all this other stuff. And you never hear any other perspective. And then when you hear something, mostly from the news media, and you go, well, that's crazy. Nobody I know thinks that way. But it's because you're so insular,
right. Plus, almost none of what you hear in that back and forth are like original thoughts.
No.
You know what I mean? For the most part, they're talking points that you're like, oh, this is this and this is that. They're not forming their own opinions necessarily.
Yeah.
Based on different perspectives.
Man, I don't even know. Last time I had an original thought, probably. Because even when you think you have an original thought, you're like, no,
true.
Somebody else had that thought.
But every once in a while, you just, you say just a string of words, 3 to 5 things. You're like, I'm pretty sure I've never said those words. Have never been uttered in the history of ever.
Yeah, and it's
every
usually...
once in a while.
It's you. I mean, and that's it. It might just be, it might be that you've just put this sentence together. But the other aspect of that is it has to make sense. You could just say a lot of crap and then boom.
I mean, that's my whole.
Brilliant.
Honestly, that's my whole strategy.
Yeah.
Is if I can just saturate everything I do with as much me, it'll filter down. It's like a funnel. The quality just runs through.
Is that like trickle down Smitty-nomics?
Trickle down Smitty. Sounds like a horrible.
Trickle down Smitty does sound awesome though.
Hey, real quick, let me. I have sponsors, Christal.
Oh well,
I want to talk about.
Fancy.
I feel pretty fancy. M22 in Suttons Bay in the beautiful region of northern Michigan. Christal can vouch for it. It is gorgeous. There's many people up here looking at colors. I seriously commute from Cadillac every day. Which, by the way, thank you so much for making the drive to Cadillac.
I love Cadillac.
Traverse. Yeah, so do I.
Anytime I can drive to Cadillac, I will do it. I just love this little town.
Heading south yesterday, driving to work at Williamsburg. You want to talk about a convoy of people coming back. Like all the people that were leaving for the weekend from their color tour or whatever. It was like bumper to bumper as I'm on the expressway to Cadillac heading north and everybody's coming back south. And it was just like bumper to bumper for miles. And I'm like, man, when our region, northern Michigan, Traverse City, has always been popular, but it's on a different level.
Oh, yeah. It's out of control now.
Right now.
It's just like, boom. You grew up here, right?
Pretty much, for the most part.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I'm at the age now, Smitty, where I can say things like, I remember when 31 was a dirt road,
Yeah.
I really remember when the new mall came to town,
No, I honestly, I remember when I was a kid. How old are you?
43.
43. I'm 47. I'll be 47 later this year. I remember like going to the old Cherryland Mall before it was
Cherryland
individual
Center.
Cherryland Center. And it was a mall you walked through. There was a fountain with pennies.
And Mr. Bulky's.
And yeah, I saw Santa there.
Oh, yeah. Santa
You know?
was there. Fountain with pennies, Mr. Bulky's, Kmart. Awesome.
And the mall being new. Now the mall is lame,
Yeah. I mean,
you know?
I still think the mall is cool, but that's just because.
I hate it whenever I have to go in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask you a question? Because this is something that I've done being, I don't like confrontation, and sometimes they at those kiosks in the mall, and they have people who are trying to sell you like perfume or something.
Wait. When you say confrontations, do you mean any sort of like,
I don't
hey,
like anyone saying,
you,
"Hey,
I need
you."
to talk to you?
Yeah, I'm
So
just
not
like,
so not like unexpected interactions. You would consider those to be confrontations.
That is one of the most confrontational things
Hey!
that someone can do. Like, you're just minding your business trying to get over to Old Navy. Then someone's like, hey, I got something for your hair. And you're like, ah. So I will actually get in my car from Target.
Don't sit
and
down at like the massage chairs when they ask you to. No.
I'm not going to do that. I don't want to play your big giant chess game either.
God.
I'm getting in my car. And that is something I have to say, just from a marketing standpoint. Maybe the managers of the mall want to say, stop with the heavy sales there because people are leaving to go to another store.
Now, do you make eye contact before you are confronted? Do you make do you see somebody? Because I am a master at like not looking at people.
Yeah,
If you don't make eye contact, they're not going to like talk to you.
No, that's not true. Because
I didn't say
I
true.
have tried to employ every possible scenario where I'm like, oh, down, look at your toes. Just don't look over there. Pretend you're on your phone. And they will still be like, hey, lady, come here.
I guess Land O'Lakes lady. I wasn't looking at her. You know?
And she sought you out.
Man, but but you like them all.
But I like them all. I mean, I like brick and mortar stores. I shop online, but I still love to walk into a store and be like, oh, look, a sweater. You know?
Yeah. I do brick and mortar. But the mall, no. I only
No?
go there when I need to get Christmas presents. Really, that's the only time I go to the mall is when I go Christmas shopping, and then I have to go to Jonathan B's, have a couple Long Islands.
And that's
to, like,
gone now.
What?
Yeah.
When did that close?
This summer, man.
Oh my God!
You really haven't been to the mall in a while.
No.
Yeah, now you can go to Agave, and they have margaritas as big as a fishbowl.
I usually just go to B-Dubs right across the way.
Yeah. Then you have to get in your car. And
You know what I also do? Like, I don't know why, especially living in a place like Traverse where there's like, it's well-known like foodie area, lots of great
right.
restaurants, local restaurants. I still go to like Applebee's.
Oh yeah,
That's
no.
like my anonymous spot where I just go hang out and sit at the bar. Don't talk to anybody.
I love the decor in Applebee's too. Like I want my basement to look like an Applebee's. There's just random like you'll see a trombone on the wall, and then also like a carousel horse, and I'm like, that is cool. That's kitschy.
I started going to Ruby Tuesdays on like Monday for some
Is
reason.
that here in Cadillac?
After the podcast on Mondays, I let's go eat dinner at Ruby Tuesdays.
That's
It's like my old man Smitty routine.
They have the best salad bar around.
I haven't even had the salad bar.
What?
Oh.
Oh God, I'm a
Do I look
sucker for a
like
salad
I
bar.
Go to the salad bar.
You're fit, you know?
I am fitter than I have been.
Yeah, that's what I
fitter
hear.
Than I have been.
I see you have like a punching bag in there.
I got a heavy bag. Honestly, I talked about it a couple last podcast. I started smoking again.
I know.
Oh God, I quit for a year and a half, and like I was running almost every day for like 2 hours a day on that elliptical.
Wow.
Really getting it back, and then I tried to run the first like couple weeks after I started smoking again. I would run here and there, and it just got like, so I'm like,
Man.
I will quit again, and I will quit again soon because there's no way in hell I'm going up those suicide steps in the middle of winter.
Oh yeah.
To go smoke,
No.
you know.
No, man. So smoking. What made you start again?
Oh God, it was just
Are you a stress smoker or are you a bored smoker?
stress.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Stress. Yeah, I mean, I was coming home from work from the casino, and I had summer camp at the Folks,
Yeah.
you know, before I moved into this place, and I was just like, God, nothing's working. I guess I'll just regress all the way because
Yeah.
I was feeling like the last time I worked at the casino, I was staying at my parents', so it just felt like it's not a
Oh,
regression
man.
because I loved the casino. I love working there. you know, and I love the people. So it's nothing against the casino, but you're like, oh, I did that 20 years ago when I was living with my fucking parents 20 years ago, you know.
Right.
And another transition when I got out of the Army. So I was just
right.
like, yeah. So I'm like, just raged in a Shell station, bought a pack of smokes and just drove. I went out to Dingman's bar. I had a couple beers and then I just drove around after that, smoking for like an hour.
Oh, man. I've had several forays of smoking, I would say.
I think I remember you smoking,
I'm like
maybe.
an interesting... I don't smoke at all anymore, but I was always an interesting smoker because, and I don't know what this is. I think maybe it's because I can dissociate thanks to all my childhood trauma, but I'm able to just be like, oh, you're not smoking anymore. Okay, done. And like I would never pick it up again. And I think that's a rare talent, but it's also just, I just loved it. I was like, I loved it. I loved the way it looked. I loved the way it felt. I would be like, yeah.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
It is the complete opposite for me. I hate smoking. I hate the way it tastes. I hate the way it's, especially now after quitting for a year and a half. You can smell it, and you're just like, man. And I chain smoke. I don't smoke at work.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't smoke when I go to the casino. I'd make myself not bring my cigarettes in. I don't smoke in the car.
So you have a little of that too. You can just turn it off.
Well, that's the thing. I know I can. Mm-hmm. And I read this book. Tim Logan read it. A bunch of other people read it that recommended it to me, and that I recommended to a bunch of people to quit smoking. The Easy Way to Stop Smoking by Alan Carr. And essentially, it trains your brain how you think about nicotine addiction. Like, it doesn't affect our brain the way we think it does, you know. So there is that switch.
Yeah.
But when I'm going.
But there is the psychological aspect of it, though, where, you know, I mean, it's the dopamine effect, right? And so then you want that. You want the way that it feels when you
Yeah, and I don't remember ever really catching a buzz smoking a cigarette.
Oh yeah.
This time around, a cigarette gives me a buzz pretty hardcore, especially if I haven't smoked in like a couple hours or something like that. And I never really noticed that before. So I think it's something I think it's quit a year and a half without has really, you know, I was pretty sure my lungs are better and a little more healed than they were before.
So when are you going to quit?
Before winter.
Yeah.
My goal is I don't want to smoke when I go down to Detroit. I'm bringing my nephew down to his first show, which is
cool.
Jane's Addiction and Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh my gosh, what a good first concert.
Yeah, that's Uncle Nate for you.
That beats the crap out of mine. Actually, mine was pretty good. What's happening here? Is that Sublime? Oh!
I know you don't partake.
No, I do not.
But we're going to...
But hey, no judgment.
No, I know. I'm going to take a 4:20 break. When we come back, Christal has an announcement.
Oh, yeah, I do.
And we're going to talk about your various names through your radio career, because I think that's fun. Okay? Time for your 4:20 break.
Should I be getting paid for this, boys?
Water bomb so smooth.
You don't realize how high you're getting till it's too late. I am fucked up out here.
And your 4:20 break for Monday, October 24th, 2022. Fucking Kanye. I by design, pay attention to Kanye West gossip, Kim Kardashian, the whole fucking, I mean, TMZ in general, that whole world. But Kanye West and specifically, it just seems fucking nuts. This is the latest example. Kanye West is moving on to his next project, according to Rolling Stone. He is going to... he's inventing the ecosystem, a self-sustained enterprise that would have its own branded products and services, a series of enclosed mini-cities all around the country. Boy, oh boy. He's actually filed to trademark Yeezyverse in several different phonetic spellings. It is according to a source that told Rolling Stone, it's definitely his goal that everything that people touch that's his is a good thing and has a good impact on the world. Residents who live in the ecosystem will live in branded homes and shop in branded retail stores, all located within the confines of the cities. It will also contain a production house, a school, nutrition and beauty stores, and even its own news outlet. I mean, that doesn't sound dystopian at all. As well as healthcare and an education system. I think he just said a bunch of anti-Semitic shit, too. So, I mean, I got nothing other than to move on to the next one, because I was trying to think about if I had, like, Kanye West money. Even, like, there's different tiers of, like, fame and fortune and this and that. Even, like, money like a B movie star or something like that. What's the most extravagant thing I would do? Maybe if you're rich and famous for long enough, you start to become deluded and have all sorts of grand ideas. I have all sorts of grand ideas, but I am hampered by budget. I don't know. I want to do anything except travel and do all the shit I want to do, which I guess essentially is what Kanye West is doing. Speaking of just doing what you want to do, this fucking guy, Arizona, a Republican candidate for some fuck is it state senate? What's this dickhead's name? Randy Gene Kaufman, which just sounds like a pervy name anyway. According to a probable cause affidavit earlier this week published by Law and Crime magazine, I think, Maricopa Community College's police department officer asked him why he would masturbate in his truck. I'm just really stressed out, man. I got a lot going on. Yeah, I'm stressed out too. Everybody's stressed out too. There is something called, I don't even know what your home life is like. You can go in a bathroom, take a few minutes in a bedroom, the Randy Gene Kaufman, who is, man, just a small detail, Smitty. Just a small detail. He's a Republican candidate for the Maricopa County Community College's district's governing board. Now, I missed a key part in the story that he was masturbating within sight of a fucking preschool. Okay? So, he has suspended his campaign, according to multiple reports, but he's still on the ballot. Like, they're not taking him off the ballot, and he could fucking win, according to the police officer. Kaufman was approached by the cops shortly after 4 p.m. on October 4th when he was on the campus of a lifelong learning center in surprise, Arizona. The responding officer reported that he immediately became alarmed as I saw he had his pants down mid-thigh and was exposed, showing his fully nude erect penis, manipulating his genitals in a masturbatory manner. I don't want to know what that scenario looked like. He was 190 feet from the preschool. He says, I didn't even realize. Yeah, okay. Sure. He was cited. What did he tell the officer? Quote, I fucked up, man. I really fucked up. This is bad. Can I say something off the record? That was a quote. He went on to tell the cop he was running for office and that he personally knows the president of the community college's police union, blah, 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 blah. Says he didn't really realize it was in front of a fucking preschool, but within sight. There were children playing within sight. Plus, in public anyway. I'm trying to figure out this scenario in my head. Did somebody call? Sound like somebody's jerking off in the fucking truck. In the parking lot. So the cop shows up. Or if he was just walking by. And if he's just walking by, I guess if you're really fucking focused on the deed that you're doing, you're not going to see the cop coming up. Oh my God, what is that? Put it away, sir. He'll probably win. And I'm not saying he is a pedophile. But I mean, usually that's how they start off, right? Jerking off in front of preschools. Moving on. In an effort to combat loneliness in nursing homes in Montreal, Canada. I don't see how this is better. Putting a fucking robot to interact with the seniors. It is part of a study on loneliness. Grace is a rosy-cheeked, young-looking woman with a layered bob haircut, and she's also a robot. Designed by the... I don't know why it's funny to me that they are playing with the word geriatric. Geriparty Laboratory Team. Grace, the robot, will be visiting a couple residents, Pearl and Theo, twice a week for the next 8 weeks as part of a study led by Montreal's Jewish General Hospital. Her goal during each 30-minute session will be to keep seniors living in nursing homes company and help break social isolation. I'm not a fucking psychologist but I don't know how that's going to make it better. I'm trying to think, like, I would be so fucking creeped out. Like, what? It would just add to my loneliness. I'm sitting here talking to this fucking robot. You know? I think about, like, my late grandmother who just died. And my uncle who just died. He was in his 90s. And they were living at the nursing home, essentially, the last few years. And they made friends. They had all kinds of friends that they talked to. You know, I can't fucking imagine what my late grandmother would say if I was like, Grandma, you know, I have this friend who I think you might like to talk to. It's very, she's a great listener, according to this story, and I think you might like to talk to her every once in a while. They have programmed movement in the eyes, also the neck and hands, and they program it to listen and then respond with jokes sometimes. My grandma would be like, get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about? But according to these couple residents, you know, this is who knows if it's, could be one, what's that fucking movie? The Waterboy? No. No, not Billy Madison either. What's the other one? Happy Gilmore. You know, you're in my world now, Grandma. You fucking sit for this interview and say you love this fucking robot. That's fucking creepy, man. Stop it. Next, in a photo straight out of hell, the capabilities now with just like regular people, quote, who are chasing like photography as a passion for the first time, and they're, you know, the photographic, the microscopic or telescopic capabilities to photograph things that are microscopic are fucking crazy, man. It's just another, like, it's just another fucking next level scientific breakthrough that we've had in the last however many years that I'm just like, man, you can see so many details of the littlest things. And this one, again, straight out of fucking hell. That is not an orc. That is not an orc. That is an actual ant. Not an aunt. An ant. The face of an ant. And it looks fucking terrifying. Like the new Pinocchio that's on Disney. I'm sort of a sucker for like the live action remakes of Disney cartoons. I think it's kind of cool if they do it right. But Pinocchio, which I didn't finish, the Jiminy Cricket, that looks like it's fucking satanic counterpart. Because they have so much detail in that cricket that, I mean, it looks like that, but from hell. Man, oh man, oh man. It's pretty fantastic. And when I say regular people, it sounds like it was this guy's first like photo contest. He won like $35. Man, that didn't even win. It won $35. What was the artist's name? The photographer's name? I do want to include that. This is a tough one. It was the 2022 Nikon Small World Photo Micrography competition by Lithuanian wildlife photographer Eugenius Kavlauskas. He won $35 for that photo, and worldwide notoriety, I might add. It wasn't even $35. It was he won one Nikon item with a retail value of $35. So there you go. You got like a gift card. The top honor and $3,000 cash prize went to this photo, zoomed in on the head of a Madagascar giant day gecko, which looks really fucking cool. But it's not that. Somebody give me a Bible. Moving on. Last one. I think a lot of people, most people, at least most people that give a fuck about other people, give a shit when somebody's getting evicted. This particular case out of Massachusetts, police showed up to give an eviction to the residents of a 5-bedroom, $1.3 million home. And the officers were met with a bunch of protesters. A lot of times it's unjust. People are going to show up, protest. It's not necessarily out of the ordinary. Except when 55-year-old Rory Woods pulled up with a flatbed full of beehives, quickly jumped out of her SUV and started trying to unleash thousands of bees in manufactured hives. As the deputy jumped on board and tried to stop her, she smashed the styrofoam lid to one hive tower. As the bees escaped, the deputy sustained several stings to his face and head. And then they said, there's people allergic to bees here. She's like, oh, you're allergic? Good. And now she's in jail. Actually, I think she was released, but she was arrested. She pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of felony assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, 3 counts of felony assault with a dangerous weapon, and disorderly conduct, according to Massachusetts Live. Man, you got to do that. First of all, a little more on the fucking down low, you know. You just got to, you got to hide the bees there, and then when they show up all willy-nilly, you just kind of pull it and let them go. But that lady was like, I want you to know it was me. Unleash the bees. There you go. That's your 420 break. Eat some Doritos. Chill out and get your ass back to work.
Oh, man. I got the fucking munchies real bad. How about you?
Hey. Smoke weed every day.
Crystal remains sober, for the record.
Yes, I do. Yes, I am sober.
I did not go out and partake, by the way, during the 420 break.
You did not.
You know?
No.
Had enough all day anyway.
Hey, it's okay. It's legal.
Yeah.
And you're an adult.
Honestly, it still feels like if I go out, because I don't smoke in here.
Mm-hmm.
If I go outside, smoke a bowl or whatever, you still get that feeling.
Yeah.
That like people are watching me. They're going to call the cops.
Because we're Generation X. And I mean, first of all, which I think we're the best generation. By
Fuck
the
yeah,
way.
we are. No, honestly,
that's it.
there's science behind that. Probably not. But we're the generation that grew up with the old-fashioned ways, that phones that had zeros that you had to spin all the way around, and birth of like the internet. So we're adept at like the new things, and we know all about the old things.
We appreciate.
Yeah.
We learn patience, especially when we were trying to win radio contests with that 1-800 blah 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 blah, and you have to use a rotary dial phone.
That was a total, because it was a total crapshoot.
contest.
It was a total crapshoot on if you were going to be able to like get in. And
Oh man, I remember like calling in, and we had a rotary dial phone. I'd be like, "Oh, go!" And then I'm still dialing, and I hear on the radio like, "Oh, we got our winner." I was like, "Damn!"
Did you ever, just for fucking kids that don't know, like you would have to do the 1 for the long distance, then the area code, and then whatever 7 numbers. And it would take forever. But I would dial the number almost all the way up until the last 0.
Oh yeah.
And just waiting for it. And if you waited too long, it would go, and you're like, God damn
You had to have that number down. You had to.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the other thing too. I mean, now we have these phones. Do you know anybody's number other than your own by heart?
I think I know Tim Logan's.
Yeah?
I barely know mine.
Yeah. But you know Tim's.
I don't know, because Tim is the person that I have called the most.
Right.
Probably in the last 20 years.
Wow. So I know my mom's home phone because that was the same number. Like, so I remember that. And I can remember numbers from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like, calling your boyfriend, whatever, like, I remember that number.
I still remember my home phone number.
Yeah.
From when I was a kid.
But
which
I
is
have
weird.
no idea. My best friend, no idea what her number is. It's terrible.
Do you remember party lines? Did you ever have to deal with party lines?
Oh no,
I lived
didn't
in the
have
sticks.
party lines. Yeah.
I lived in the woods and
Was the party lines where it would be like, "Hey, get off the phone, Harry, because I want to make a
your
call."
neighbor
Yeah.
would be on the line, and you'd have to wait until they're done talking.
That's patience, man. That is patience.
Yeah.
Now it's like if you have to wait 10 seconds for something to load on the internet, you're just like, "Oh, it's broken."
God.
You had to wait for your neighbor to get off the phone to call 911. No, we didn't
Yeah.
even have 911.
I remember me and my buddy got on the phone once. We were at home alone for some reason because my parents would just leave us alone all the time. And the lady from down the road was on the party line.
Really?
And she was talking like creditors were on the line, like essentially threatening her with like foreclosure or whatever.
Oh my
she didn't.
gosh.
And my buddy was just like, "You leave that old lady alone!" And started like yelling at this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really sweet.
It was such a weird fucking thing.
That is, I mean,
I'm trying to keep my F's down because you have
no,
a
it's okay.
reputation to uphold, Crystal.
my reputation.
You're a community leader.
Maybe. Maybe I used to be. I do love the show Community, though. That is true. And you thought I was talking about the real Community, which
Because
I love too.
you are, honestly, and I'm being 100% sincere when I say this. Like, I've watched you from a safe distance.
Mm-hmm.
For the last 15 years, we started out in radio essentially at the same time together. You weren't doing radio before.
No.
About the same time I came in was about the same time you came in,
Yeah.
right?
And I came in, I was started in sales.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was hired for sales, and I was terrible.
Yeah.
And then I got into promotions.
Yeah, and so we worked for the same company. You were there for a year or two. I think about 2 years, 3 years maybe.
I was there for 5 years.
5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I've
5
watched you
years.
just grow as a professional.
Aw,
And like, I'm being serious. It's cool to see people that you know and respect do awesome shit.
Yeah.
And you started green in radio. You went to another station and a complete 180
Yeah, I totally
from
did.
presentation. You know,
did.
when you were, what were your radio names? Because honestly, when I was doing the thumbnail banner
Mm-hmm.
and saying, I don't know what the fuck Crystal's last name is,
Yeah.
I was like, Anderson. I'm going with Frost Anderson because that's what's on
That
our
is,
Facebook.
yeah.
But you've changed it on Facebook a bunch of times.
You know, sometimes you just change your name, change your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was Ms. Christal when I first got into radio, MIZZ, and
Yeah.
that was a mutual friend of ours named me that, Cartman. So he was like, "You're Ms. Christal," and I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay."
Talk about, not in detail necessarily, but just like vibe of presentation, just the,
Oh, man.
what you were doing, that compared to how you've shifted your presentation and your
Yeah.
persona, because essentially your Ms. Crystal days on the zone,
It
it was a shock jock show.
Yeah, it was shock jock radio. And I think we both had the same boss at the time, and I remember him getting like you were supposed to tone these guys down, but I was just like right in the mix with them. I did a lot of the writing for the bits and things. That's my favorite
Because
thing to
you
do.
gotta, like, honestly, you gotta, if you're with two other people who are trying to go balls to the wall essentially and offend as many people as
That was
possible
exactly
on purpose.
what they were. I think we all kind of. I was the least offensive, though. I will say that.
But you got to feel like that pressure to just be as outrageous as possible.
Yeah, there's that. And then there was also just, I have a really quirky, weird sense of humor. And I loved writing some of the bits that we would do. And just getting
Some
really
of them
weird
were
with
funny.
it. Yeah, some of them were funny. It was really obnoxious, though. And it's funny to me because I remember, not so many years later when I was like prepping to interview like the governor. And I was just like, you used to be making male anatomy jokes on a station. And now you are asking serious questions. Like, what is wrong with you? What happened to you?
It's got to feel better, but feel a little. It's definitely got to feel like a weird transition.
Well, I want to say, starting in that world where not a lot of people in radio or even in podcast anymore, I think, are doing that shock jock thing. I think that had its day.
There are, but I don't think either
Yeah.
they're going to last, because I definitely don't try to do that with my stuff. I only talk about what I think is interesting and whatever hits me in the moment. You know what I mean? If it so happens to offend, that's just a byproduct sometimes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But I think being authentic is the new brand, right? It's not about
It should
causing, people shock. You don't, I mean, it used to be like if somebody called and complained at the station, then you knew you were doing a good job, that kind of thing. And it was, the jocks versus the suits and stuff. And it's like, no, I mean, you're there to entertain and educate and hopefully sometimes enlighten, but you don't, you shouldn't be making it your daily goal to offend someone, right? That's just like in normal life. You don't have to get out there and offend people. And I just remember, because it got pretty raunchy on that station, and I remember being like, my kids would never be able to listen to this.
Yeah.
And so it was good for me to get out of that and go do something else, because I wanted my kids to be able to listen. Not that they ever did.
Yeah.
They just, my kids didn't even know what station I was on for a long time. They would just be like, "What? Are you still doing that, Mom?" I'm like, "Geez."
You ever play many of your bits now that they're older and grown?
No, I'll let them find them
Do you
on.
have any bits?
I think there's some old Ms. Crystal stuff still somewhere on YouTube. Back when we used to
that's
do
right.
some
Honestly,
weird
I was going
videos.
through, I was going through YouTube the other day, and I found
there was
that
some
page.
That show, though, I'll tell you, and I love those guys. I don't know what Jake is up to much anymore, other than being like highly successful somewhere else.
It's in Wisconsin somewhere.
Yeah, but I know I keep in touch with Cartman, and he's done the same thing. He's changed his presentation.
Yeah.
And I think we just kind of had to grow up. We were all in our 20s. I mean, I was the oldest, and I was turning 30 when I got off the station. But like, you're just kind of a young kid, and you're just doing your thing. I don't know. But
it forms a good knowledge, a good a base for what you're gonna do later, and know what's good, know what's not.
Yeah.
Because again, you did a complete 180 when you went to.
Well, yeah. Then I was producing for a conservative talk show.
Yeah.
And that was a totally different. Oh my gosh, that was completely different. And then, I had my own talk show too, which I tried to play a little more middle of the road. Not conservative, not liberal, just talk.
No, I enjoyed it. You did a really good job.
Thanks. But that was like, that presentation was you want to make people laugh, but you don't want, you don't take it to, I don't know. Like, I always just remembered my grandpa could be listening to this. So I wouldn't say anything awful.
You got out, what, 6 months ago?
6 months ago, I got out.
You got
yes.
out. Honestly, for me, and
It's
like I know it's, well, for me it was. For me it was. And then a lot of it is just, what did you say earlier? You said it's not the jock against the owners anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I still appreciate, I still have that mentality where it's just
it might have been for you.
It was for me. Not necessarily to the extent that I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's just a lot of places that don't do things the way I want to do them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You worked for a place that was not the same. It wasn't the same.
I'm
same
telling you,
place.
I mean,
I know I've heard nothing but great things.
Oh, it's fantastic
about that place.
It was the hardest decision of my life to get out of radio. It really was. And I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I made that decision, because I'm doing some really incredible stuff now. But I really just knew it was time. I felt it, and I felt like every day I was on the show for 2 hours, and I was doing as much as I could, but I was speaking to the same audience, and I thought, gosh, there's some things that I want to talk about, and maybe move the needle on some things. And my favorite organization of all time, offered me a job, and I've been,
which is
part of them. That's the Traverse Bay Children's Advocacy Center.
Which I know that's, you've kind of been a big thing for you for years and years and years.
It was I worked for them very part-time back when I first got it, hired at WTCM. So that was like, I was doing child abuse prevention and working on the radio, and then kind of moved over into a marketing position, and I just got a promotion. So
nice, congratulations.
Thank you. I am now the Senior Director of Communications and Primary Prevention, which is a long title. I don't know. You have to come up with an acronym or something. But
What is it again?
Senior Director of Communications, so what, like STROC, and Primary Prevention. It's a long business card. But it's really
I'll have it.
incredible stuff, though, because instead of just like, hey, here's what you do to keep kids safe, here are the signs to look for child abuse, child sexual abuse, all this stuff. It's like, let's stop calling that prevention. Let's do some research, and we're working with Michigan State University to do some research on what are the factors that make people abuse children. And let's change it. Let's do some social norms changes. And
so language in that would be key then. So you don't want to say prevention anymore.
It's still prevention. So no matter what I'm talking about, like if a kid comes to the Traverse Bay CAC, and that's the regional response center for any child that there's a allegation or concern that this child has been harmed, they come to the CAC. And then they have a forensic interview, and that's when the multidisciplinary team, which these are a lot of big words, these could be the CPS agents or the law enforcement or prosecuting attorneys, they get around a table and they listen to this forensic interview. They watch this. It's happening in our building. And, if a child discloses, then there's some conversations. If a child doesn't, that's the best day ever or if we find out there's nothing that's going on, it's the best day in the world. No problem. Kid goes home, parents go home, everything's fine. But that is prevention because we want to prevent it from happening again, right? So that's prevention. That's what we call tertiary prevention. And then there's secondary prevention where I always look at it like a river, Smitty. So if tertiary prevention is in the really rocky part where something bad has happened and we got to rescue the kid right now out of the river. And then the secondary prevention is something bad could happen. Maybe it's already happening. There's a bend in the river, though. If we can get them help now, we can stop it from getting worse, right? But primary prevention, which is what I do, is macro social work. So it's you're not even in the river. You're looking from the hill and going, how do we keep all these kids out of the river? We got to do stuff. We have to, do education, and we have to get people talking about this. And we have to really address the fact that this happens so often that I think the community is at some point even subconsciously accepting it. It happens all the time. I mean, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys, that's a lot of kids being sexually abused.
Yeah. And I mean, on different levels of, I don't want to say severity or anything like that I don't want to make light of anything, but different levels of severity, for lack of a better term. All of that, we talk about mental health all the time. We talk about this and that, and there's just so many people that have those things in them that they won't admit, that they won't let themselves think about, or whatever. Which makes me feel like so many more people deal with depression than we think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting that you should say that, because I think that there are people who probably do think about it. But yet it's not something. There's so many myths around, especially child sexual abuse. I mean, with physical abuse, we can see it, right? So you can see that happen. Somebody might see a child be harmed. I don't know anybody personally or have heard of anybody who has seen a child be sexually abused other than the abuser themselves, right? So there's that aspect of it, that if you can't see it, then does it really exist? Well, it does exist. And then there's this aspect that the people who are abusing children are these stranger danger, like aqualung types that are hanging out in, parks. That is not true. Like, it's not true at all. And it's happening with people And I think that's the scarier part for people, right? It's easier for someone to say, stay away from strangers. I can control that. That's fine. And you still should stay away from strangers. Like, I'm not telling everybody to go, talk to strangers, but you have to understand that the people who are abusing children most often are already in your life. They are.
Yeah, I think I don't have statistics, but I mean, most kids know.
Oh yeah,
they're abusers.
Especially here, like we did a lot of studies up here in the 6-county area in northern Michigan, and it's something like 96% know they're abusers, trust their abusers. And yet, I think that's the other thing about it, that I think people have this fatalist attitude that's like, nope, you're never going to change it. It's always going to be there. It's just this bad thing about humanity and society. And what we're trying to do with primary prevention is to say, no, you can change it. It's totally preventable. It's not like it's not like a tornado, right? It is.
It's not born
preventable.
It's not born in you.
No, and it's not born in you.
You know what I mean?
And it is not some freak of nature. It's nothing like that. It is something that you can prevent, but you're not going to prevent it really until we figure out who's doing it, why it's happening, and we start to be real about it. Like, Smitty, I was just doing some research about, and you probably remember this, because I remember this being a kid, and it's Halloween right around the corner. And in the 70s, there was this resurgence of the Candyman killer, right? And I don't know if you remember this at all, but it was it actually started from like a Dear Abby, it was some op-ed, I think, in the New York Times, where someone said, "Can you really trust the apple that your neighbor is giving you? What if it has a razor blade in it?" And it was a rhetorical thing, right? But people took that like, oh, people are going to put razor blades in apples. And it was right around Halloween. And then something happened in Detroit, and some kid found heroin in his candy bag, allegedly. And so they said, wow, somebody is trying to drug kids, and this kid died from this heroin overdose, and this was in the 70s. And, then there was an issue like a year later in Texas, and someone called the Candyman killer. This is something that the media started, this idea, but that they laced pixie sticks with cyanide, and this little boy died. And all of these things really did happen, but the problem is the boy was poisoned by his father. That wasn't a stranger danger thing. It wasn't trick-or-treating. And the child that found the heroin was, found it in his uncle's house, not in his candy bag. So these things were started like, oh my gosh, people are trying to hurt kids, and the community responded big time. I mean, I don't know about you, but I remember taking my candy bag to hospitals to have it x-rayed. My mom would take us over to the hospital, have it x-rayed.
Say what? I had never experienced that before. I did not know that you could do that.
Yeah. And I mean, communities were canceling Halloween, completely canceling trick-or-treating. There was all sorts of things that happened because the community responded. In New Jersey, they even made it a law that it was guaranteed prison time if you tampered with candy in any way. So all of this stuff happened because of these things that didn't even happen.
Yeah.
So that tells me, though, that the community has what it takes to
It's very satanic
help.
panic.
It is.
Yeah.
But if the people had that kind of response to what's happening to kids for real every day, to literally 25% of girls and 20% of boys, 18% of boys, if you had that kind of reaction, we could stop it. We need to create that reaction.
Yeah, and but then again, you were talking about taking the prevention out of.
Well, it's not taking prevention
I'm not saying. I'm not.
out, but yeah,
I understand.
Yeah.
I don't know how you catch them young, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? Because it develops over a period of time, I would assume.
Well, in some cases, but that's the other thing. We don't know enough about the people who are doing this.
Yeah.
In general, and I mean, a lot of the cases are not prosecuted.
How much have abusers, physical, sexual, been studied psychologically? I mean, I guess I don't have any fucking answer to that.
Well, not really in the way that at least in the way that we could understand more about them.
To figure out,
Yeah.
What triggers would be,
Well, and I think that's the thing too. I mean, this is the other thing about especially sexual abuse. Like this is something that's happening in our community. It cuts across all the boundaries. It cuts across, race and creed, and it cuts across socioeconomic. So it's not just people who live in poor neighborhoods or people with, this faith or whatever. It's everywhere, including other countries. And so somebody who's being abused here in Michigan, I mean, the same kind of thing is happening in Iraq, right? So it's so universal that you would think there would be more studies about perpetrators. But the fact is, not a lot of studies are done, but B, not a lot of people are prosecuted. it just doesn't happen. Maybe it pleas out, or it gets dismissed or whatever. So you don't really know.
How, I don't expect you to know these numbers either, but like how many cases go from the credible accusatory stage to prosecution? How many actually make it through?
I actually don't know those stats, and I know there's a lot of reasons why prosecuting attorneys may not, may offer a plea deal, and most of the reasons are to protect the victim, right?
Yeah.
Because and I know you know this about me. I'm a survivor, so I was one of those people who's my perpetrator was convicted, did go to trial, but I was also older, so I was like 18 when this was going down, and that's a lot different than an 8-year-old. So there's a lot of attention to be given to prosecutors who say, I don't want to put the kid through this, because there's also this aspect too of, do you want to traumatize a kid that's already been traumatized?
That's and that's something that I don't necessarily think about when I see stories with plea deals on sexual assault or sexual abuse. We're like, what plea deal? What are you talking about? You don't think about those things.
Yeah. But there's, I think the other thing too is that it's like we don't actually follow the story all the way to the end, because this is the part of media. This is one of the reasons that I wanted to get out of where I was and maybe do more of this, because I wanted to see that there were things were okay, that kids are okay, kids get through it. And I also want to start to pay more attention to, what is happening here. We're headline people, right? You see a headline and you go, oh gosh, you don't even read the story. You don't even know what happens, but you think that you know what happens. And so, maybe working from this end in this child protection world to be able to educate media and say, this is really what you should be talking about. This is how, you could be doing more stories about prevention. You don't have to just do every awful headline.
Yeah.
We could talk about prevention. For every allegation of child sexual abuse, child abuse, witness to violence, domestic violence, whatever, is an opportunity for prevention education, an opportunity, every single one. And we just don't do that. I think the media doesn't do that.
So what are your roles now as your executive communication director, essentially?
So, I'm director of communications. So I'm kind of doing some of the branding and stuff, and then I'm doing the primary prevention stuff. So so I'm actually going to be hiring someone very soon to do the marketing.
You're going to have an assistant.
But we are going to be launching one of these puppies, a podcast.
Yeah, let's do that announcement. Let's do your
announcement. That's my announcement. It's really boring, isn't it?
No, it's not in the slightest.
Hello,
a new
friends.
podcast.
Yeah, a new podcast, and it's all going to be about the primary prevention stuff. But what we're hoping to do with it, which I think is pretty interesting, is what we're essentially trying to do is to change the social norms around this subject. So people have the social flinch of like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. Well, we're not going to talk about child sexual abuse on every podcast, but we are going to talk about some of the factors. We'll talk about, what happens. I think we can have a lot of conversations about perpetrators in general, and how you might look at someone, you have implicit bias, and you say that, that guy looks like a sex offender, but that guy doesn't, so I don't believe those kids. Well, that's implicit bias, right? So this one presents better, so we can talk about that. And ultimately, we just want to try to change. We want to bring perspectives. We don't want to change anything. We want to bring new perspectives to the conversation. So you as a listener might go, I never thought about that. And then you can fill out a little survey, and we'll have our little research people look at that, and maybe we'll start to move the needle. And it's actually not just one needle on child sexual abuse. It's thousands, millions of needles. You have to literally change the perspective of all of these people who are listening in order to go, you know what, I can do something to help a kid in my community. I know I can. And then we'll help you know what that is.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, but more and more people are finally, honestly, I feel like this world is on the verge of some real change.
I do too.
As far as like being acceptable to talk about mental health or any number of controversial topics, more and more people are willing to talk about it. But I feel like, first of all, what's the name of your podcast?
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet?
No, I don't
No?
know. You have any ideas?
No,
So
not in the slightest.
I was thinking, and this is something.
I would come up with something totally stupid. Anyway, yeah, run with it, Christal.
I was thinking, we have this we did this campaign called Our Second Nature, and so I truly believe that, and I think most of us believe that most people want to do the right thing, want to do the good thing, want to protect kids, want to help people, want to feel involved in their community, and so it's kind of your second nature to do that. And then there are these barriers, though, that are human-created barriers, social norms barriers, that make it so that sometimes you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So you start to question yourself, and you go, well, I don't know. I know it's in my nature that I want to protect this kid, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just pretend it's not happening, right?
Yeah.
So we want to start to, first of all, notice that there are those barriers there that are human constructs. And then we say, but it is your second nature to do that. So how can we help you to be able to help people in your community?
It really is such a knee-jerk. And there's got to be so many different factors for somebody not wanting to take part in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Whether A, it triggers some sort of memory.
Sure.
B, just makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's just like, I don't want to think about the terrible things that are happening to other people because I have enough terrible things in my life right now.
Yeah, you just did. This is one of the frameworks that we're trying to reconstruct. And you saying that is like us versus them, right? If, oh my gosh, I can't do any more. Now you want me to do more. We don't necessarily think you have to do anything either. Just listening and hearing other perspectives, like we were talking about before, might make you go, huh, I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
And then the next time something happens, right, you see something going on and you go, I don't know, that doesn't feel right. And then you have a sideways conversation, right, and with your neighbor, and you say, that doesn't really feel right. Do you think does that look okay? Maybe we should go have a conversation with someone. Because what we do right now is we just say, oh my gosh, I think somebody is hurting so-and-so, and now I'm going to call this number, or I'm going to call 911 or whatever. And that's all you know about it. But a lot of this stuff is just, you could talk to someone and say, hey, is everything okay over here? I can be a bystander and intervene a little bit, because most of the time everything's going to be fine, right? But you're doing something, and you're going to have strength in numbers if you and your neighbor feel the same way about it. And this is an interesting thing. I don't know if you heard about this story, but Sarah Lawrence College out east, there was a recent story, I think, in May or so, about a dad who was living at the dorm with all of these girls, these females in this female dorm, who's living with his daughter, and he created a alleged sex cult in this dorm, okay?
At which college?
At Sarah Lawrence College, which is a
Okay.
very, it's a highly regarded East Coast school. And people knew that this dad was living at this dorm, because how would you not know, right? There's
Yeah.
a guy that's walking.
Everybody's talking.
And they're all going,
Yeah.
that's weird. And maybe they didn't say anything to someone, right? So all we really, all it would have taken is someone to go, is that okay? Is that normal? I don't think that's
Yeah.
normal. And then they talk to someone else that says, no, that's not normal. And then strengthen numbers, and people could have been helped.
There's an element of this thing in our society now, which I don't remember being as prevalent when I was younger, that is uncomfortable now, and that is, it's none of my business. It's none of your business. That, like, honestly, like, I remember when I was a kid, and I know things are going to change and things aren't going to be the same, but I remember, what do they say? The community raises a child,
Yeah.
right?
It takes a village.
Takes a village.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of that anymore necessarily.
Yeah, well,
because
Yeah.
if you see something, nobody, just mind your own business.
Well, and I think that's part of it is, and it maybe that wasn't happening in your world, but I think that was happening a lot before too. When I was a kid, I know it was happening. It's none of my business kind of thing. But there's also this big identity factor here, and we're Americans, first of all, and Americans have a very rugged individualist identity, right? And we also have this fantastic identity of due process. And that's a really important identity. Like you are innocent until you're proven guilty. So when a child accuses someone of something, it's really hard for people to say, oh yeah, that happened, right? Because you're going, well, it hasn't been proven.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one because what people then say is, well, kids lie. And, statistically, kids don't lie. They don't. And then, the people give all of these other excuses for this behavior because they just don't want to believe that it's happening. That's basically what it comes down to. They don't want to have to ever think that someone would hurt a child,
Yeah.
But it does happen. And I feel like I have to say this right now, if you know someone or if you are being, abused, the best thing you can do is call 911. You can also go online to michigan.gov, Child Protective Services. But the best thing, call 911. People will help you.
So what are your goals with this podcast?
Yeah.
I know you explained it a little bit, but
It's really hard to explain because I'm just starting to figure it out. What are the goals with the podcast? The big goal would be, after we have conversations and bring in different perspectives and talk about these different scenarios, right, for where you can possibly interject to help someone in a community. It doesn't just have to be a child. I think this is something that our entire community is missing, is this feeling of, I've got your back.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens if someone in our community is harmed? We're all harmed, right? That's what I want to hopefully instill in people. And maybe the next time somebody sees something weird or strange, or they just get a weird feeling about something, they tell someone and say, did you feel that? I don't know. And they have a conversation. Because that's where it's going to start, Smitty, is just having a conversation. And you said something really important. You said, this is really uncomfortable stuff, but I feel like things are changing. And I think that too. And I'll tell you.
It doesn't feel like it sometimes. Like there's,
yeah.
And I said it a few podcasts ago where, there's people are dragging their progress feet on a lot of things to me. You know what I mean? Where I'm not used to those things and I'm not ready to change this much yet.
Yeah.
But there are so many more people willing now to have an open mind or a different perspective.
Yeah.
And minority groups and causes like LGBTQ or whatever, those are becoming way more acceptable and widely what I'm talking
right.
about.
It's accepted.
It's more accepted, and it's about time.
And, right. And I think the other thing too is that people feel safe. So one thing I'll say about this world is that it used to feel very unsafe to talk about being a victim or a survivor because you didn't want to be judged, you didn't want to be shamed, you didn't want someone to think that you're crazy or that you're damaged. I mean, these were all these things that, as a victim myself, you would feel like, oh gosh, and would someone believe you? Would someone think that you're lying? I mean, all of these things would come up, and then all of a sudden people went, oh no, I feel safe to do this.
Is there a thing? I don't. If this is too personal, please don't. But is with victims, you probably have to get vibes from people all the time. That wasn't the best way that I wanted to put this. Was
like, what are you talking about?
Do you feel like you are a target to be victimized again because you're a survivor? Do you feel like people will target you?
No, I think I used to feel. I think I used to feel that way because when I started doing the healing work early.
Yeah, good.
I was one of the lucky ones. I was able to go through the whole process first of all, and my perpetrator's still in prison. So I was able to get healing from that, and then start to go to therapy right away. But I still struggle with it. Do I think that I'm more likely to be a target? I think I did early on, and I think I was really afraid of that. And I think a lot of survivors will make decisions about their lives based on that. So they might be a little more secluded. They might feel like, maybe they're a little more introverted. Maybe they don't have really good, strong relationships because they don't trust people. Yeah. And, thankfully I've been able to get over that. And yet, I'll tell you a little secret. I still don't trust everyone completely.
Yeah, no, should you? Yeah.
I don't think so. But I also think the other thing too is the damaged part of it was the big thing for me, because those were the things that, that people would say about you, that you were damaged, that you were broken, that you were emotionally, unstable because maybe you had mental illness. Maybe I had PTSD. Maybe I had depression. And, other people in my life would say things like that. And then I went, oh my gosh, is that true about me? Instead of, is that just something you want me to be because it's easier for you?
Yeah. Yeah, because especially if you have to deal with people saying things like that,
Yeah.
then it just has to turn your paranoia on, because how many more people are fucking saying this?
Well, I don't think, I didn't get paranoid. I learned pretty quickly. I would say probably it took me until I was in my 30s. So a good 10 years after everything, I was like, that's more their problem than my problem. And but it took me a long time to get to that point, And I think that's another thing about, especially and I'm not purporting to know about every survivor out there, and every instance of child sexual abuse is very different. So, but I will say, I think that at least in my case, I got myself into some kind of crappy relationships, and it was easier for the guys that I was in relationships with to be like, oh, you're crazy because of these things that happened to you. And I'm like, no, actually, I think you might be the problem, and I'm okay. There are a lot of people out there that will find something out about you, and then they will use it against you.
And use it to twist it, you know. Yeah, and I've done that on some levels. In some relationships, you got to fucking, in that moment, you got to find anything, any sort of angle you can get when you're in a terrible mindset and you're pissed off. The last thing you're thinking about is, I'm not defending anybody.
No.
That's not what I'm saying. But I mean, I've been there where it wouldn't be as hurtful as you can fucking be in that moment.
Yeah. Well, and for you to say that, though, see, this is how we're going to make some change. This is how these little changes are already happening in our world right now, is because people are being reflective. You were just reflective and saying, yeah, I've been there. I've been a jerk. That has happened. And there's nobody's going to shame you over that. You just told the truth. And that makes you now feel like, oh, maybe I know a little more about myself, but I know a little bit more about why I did that.
Yeah.
And that's how change happens. I think, look at us, Smitty, we're going to change the world.
I just want to change my, I don't know what I want to change.
Well, you've been pretty vocal about your own struggles with mental illness, and I just think that is huge. Now, I'm telling you, when I started in radio 15 years ago, there's no way that anybody would be that upfront about it. Not at the time.
When I started, there was no way I was going to be, Yeah. And on the air, I was probably too personal sometimes.
Yeah, me too.
You know what I mean? Where I would get deep on occasions, But this whole thing has just like the whole podcast thing and everything I'm trying to do, has really made me and forced me to reflect on and just who I am and what I'm trying to do, and has honestly forced me to just be a better person and become a better person and become a more thoughtful person. And that's kind of my only goal, is just to be as thoughtful as I can.
Right.
And is relatable, because as I say all the time, people just want something to relate to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you can be relatable and thoughtful and funny or whatever, that's really all you can try to do.
It's be authentic. I had one question for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So you had said on a recent podcast, and you've said this before, that this is your therapy.
Yeah.
Is it your therapy? Is just talking and oftentimes just to yourself your therapy? Or is your therapy knowing that people are listening?
No, well, there hasn't historically been a bunch of people listening, I've honestly, I posted that mental health clip the other day, you know, and I had a few people that I don't know that are YouTube viewers, you know, really respond to it and say, you're speaking through me. And I've had friends that say, hey, it sounds like you're in my head, and I respect you so much for doing that. So just the fact, first of all, that I can affect just 2 or 3 people is awesome to me. I love, again, the relatability. You're just trying to relate to people. What was the question again?
So do you, I mean, is the therapeutic side then knowing that you might be helping someone with your, you know, talking about your pain, or is it just the fact that you're getting to talk about your pain?
Part of my therapy is weed. And I'm only saying that because it just, as far as the reflective process, it really lets me get inside my own head and analyze. You know, people will talk about paranoia a lot with the weed. I get that too, but it really, I analyze it. I analyze where the paranoia is coming from. I analyze why I think these things, and that's part one of the therapy. And then, you know, the whole reason I do a Sunday morning talk practice podcast. And I started doing that because I just had so much anxiety about like going live and like, could I do this? That wasn't 2 minutes and then into a song.
Yeah.
You know, when the stuttering Smitty thing happens on the radio, I just can go out on a laugh and then kill it into a song or a commercial. You can't do that on a podcast. You got to keep going. And now I'm like clamming up. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And I'm like having real panic attacks. And I'm like, I have to just kill a podcast.
Right.
20 minutes in or something, because I can't make the synapses fire, and I can't figure out, like, I'm like, I don't know how to get into this bit. I don't know how to do the things, you know? So the podcast has just been letting me get comfortable with talking in a relaxed setting where I'm not fucking amped up, to sit here and give yourself the time to say what's on your head.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's essentially what it has been for me, is just like getting whatever's in my head
It's mindfulness.
out in a somewhat coherent manner.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it's full mindfulness, though, because you have to be completely present in this medium. You can't rely on going to a break in any of that. So you have to be, and that is scary, to be in your head like that.
That first couple 3 months where I was doing, because I started doing this podcast with my brothers. You know, and then I had Tim on the What the Hell Everything podcast when we first started. That didn't go off, did it? Please tell me we're still live. As I'm talking about, like, I've conquered my anxiety, which is not true.
Well, anxiety can be good for you too, though, you know?
But I was doing it with people.
Yeah.
You know, and then once, you know, and it's nothing against anybody else, but this is not for everybody. You know, my brother put it best. He's like, you know, I'm very, I have social anxiety. When I get home from work, I like to sit there and just be by myself. And I don't want to go out to the bar necessarily. And doing a podcast is just like that. It's like socializing.
Right. Yeah, but this is why I love this medium so much, and this is why I've always loved radio, is because it's the most introverted way to be extroverted.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, I'm an introverted extrovert.
Yeah, me
right?
too.
And so I think that's why we do well on this, because, man, this is all I want to do is like small, you know, one-on-one conversations. Get me out into public and I'm awkward. I don't like that.
It's so weird. I'm finally, this whole like getting over this thing has helped me wait tables, like wait big tables, because I will clam up. You know, if I'd lose my place and if I'm talking in front of a bunch of people and I just clam up and nothing's working.
Yeah.
And I totally can get through that now. Way easier than I could before, because I could allow my brain allows myself to settle down and relax and slow down, and then you're back to it.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I'm so glad that you have this. I'm really glad that you have this kind of therapy. I want to have a fun podcast in addition to this other one that is going to be super serious. No, not super serious, still fun, but really like big goals.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I just want to be like, you know, I want to bring snack foods and rate them.
Honestly, you want to bring some. If you want to make a return trip to Cadillac, bring some snack foods, and we'll rate that shit all day.
There was one of the things that we did I had a little segment called the foodie scene when I was doing radio, but I had
nice.
a lot of video stuff, and I did a wine junk food pairing. Where I brought in and we just did it at my house, but I brought in someone from a vineyard, and then I was like, pair this with Oreos, because that's what I want to. I want to drink wine and eat mac and cheese.
It's blasphemy, honestly. It's blasphemy.
No, she did a good job.
Pairing wine with Oreos?
Wine with Oreos. We did wine with gummy bears.
What would you drink with
Doritos.
an Oreo?
Gosh, I'd have to go back and see, but I think it was like a Pinot Noir.
That's
something red.
Sounds like it could be. I don't know wine, and I'm working at Bourbon 72, essentially fine dining.
Man, I used to work there.
Did you?
Yeah.
At Bourbon 72?
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Doing what?
I was waiting tables.
Were you?
Yeah, I don't know, like
I'm
5 years
bartending
ago
there.
or something.
Yeah.
That place is awesome.
It's intense.
Yeah. It's really good though.
intense.
So
you've
did you
worked-
take over for Georgia?
Yeah.
Oh,
Georgia,
I love it.
Georgia trained me.
She's the best.
Yeah, she just moved back to Alabama.
Yeah, she did. Georgia
shit.
from Alabama was always my favorite thing.
And honestly, following her is a tough order.
Yeah, she's awesome.
It really is,
Yeah.
because every single day people come in and be like, "Where's Georgia?
Yeah.
Where's Georgia?"
Right. 'Cause
Georgia
she was there
moved
for
back
so long.
6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to follow because she was a top-notch bartender
Oh yeah.
and really,
Yeah.
I.
They have some of
That-
the best food I've ever had in my entire life.
It's really good.
So good.
It's really good. They're about to put out another. I think they're going to put out the winter menu soon. It's looking like some nice ossobuco
Ooh,
being added to it. The food's
nice.
awesome right now. They have
It's
a nice
so good.
morale risotto on right now.
So Chef Broom, I know he got moved up. James.
He's the executive.
So he's executive. So is he still cooking or chefing? Is that the word? At Bourbons, or
I
is
don't
that
know
Josh
how
is
much
still
he is.
there, right?
Chef Dave is there
Chef
now.
Dave.
He's the sous chef there, and
But-
James is the executive. And I don't know how much James does stuff around the casino, but I
Yeah.
know he's doing like a bunch of banquets right now. So I don't know
Right.
if he's
But Josh still works there.
Josh.
Oh, does he not work there anymore?
Josh Paul. I know he did bartend there.
No, not Josh Paul. He would be a cook. I think.
Oh, Josh. Yeah.
Yeah, Josh.
Josh.
He's the best.
He's awesome.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
He's a metal fan. Have
No,
you
we're
talked
talking
to him
music a
about
little bit.
music?
Yeah. They always
Yeah.
got music going back to. Honestly, I love working in a kitchen.
Oh man, it's the best.
When I'm talking about like the jobs that I love the most, I got to put radio up there
Mm-hmm.
because it just helped me get to where I need to be,
Yeah,
and I loved it. That and bartending.
yeah,
Not a kitchen necessarily because I don't know how to cook
right.
for a bunch of people, but the vibe, the people in the kitchen make it worth it.
Man, that's exactly how I feel. And it's so funny because I worked there and I was doing radio, but I worked there because I wanted to make a little extra money.
Yeah.
And you do well with tips at Bourbons. And but I always said that the people who work in a kitchen are like some of the coolest people you'll ever meet in your life, because you have to be a certain personality to work in a kitchen.
It's
high
nuts.
intensity, high stress.
I've said this on the podcast before, so you've worked there, so you can vouch for this. It was the most high intense dining place I've ever worked in. I've worked in several, not a lot, but it's sweat inducing.
Oh yeah.
You're busting your ass.
You're busting.
Yeah.
It is. I always felt like that for that particular kitchen, but because, and I always said this about Chef Broom, he was not. Sometimes you run into those chefs that are yellers, and if you're
He's not a yeller.
no, he's not at all.
Yeah.
Like he's so cool and calm, and nobody's yelling at you, and that I was not used to, because I've worked in some kitchens where, I mean, I remember I was working salads when I was 14 years old at a little place that's no longer, they went out of business. But the chef, no, it wasn't the chef. Yeah, it was the chef. She used to be a waitress, and then she became the chef for some reason, and she choked out a waitress. And I was like 14 years old, and I'm like making salads, and it's my first night, and it's like a, really busy Friday night.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God. Oh, and she's like slammed her against the wall.
I can say that, first of all, I've never seen any of that violence or any sort of like anything at Bourbon 72.
No, they would never do that.
Never, ever. But I will say that people don't care about pissing you off. Like if tensions are running high,
Oh, yeah.
you're waiting on food, you're waiting on this, we're getting it. It's stacked back here between 25 steaks or whatever.
Right.
Tempers can flare.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Well,
you
yeah,
know?
but the weird thing about that too, it's kind of I don't know, it's like a sibling relationship because you might say something in the heat of anger and and then it's like totally cool. You don't even have to apologize.
It's a very ball busting environment.
Oh yeah.
And I really appreciate it.
Well, yeah, because you're good at that.
I'm getting better.
So have you been there long enough so that you can do that though? Can you?
I've been there just about 6 months now.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, you're rocking it.
I'm really coming around. I tell you what, that first month, I was like, I don't know, I made a bad move.
Man.
Coming here.
So
Because it'd been so long since I'd done food.
Right.
And I'd never really done craft cocktails. For years, it's just been pouring beer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's totally different. Yeah. I can't believe you work at Bourbon's. I knew you worked at the casino. I didn't know
Yeah.
you worked at Bourbon's.
Yeah.
Man.
I'm wearing all black.
Yeah, and like a little, like you have to wear a little vest.
No, I don't have suspenders or a vest.
Oh,
they did away with those,
they
thankfully.
did?
Yeah.
I had to wear that little vest. Yeah. So I don't know who else works there still, but there are some good eggs there. Frank was good. I don't know if he's still
Never
there.
met Frank.
Nope.
I like
He's
everybody
gone.
I work with.
Yeah.
You know, I like all the personalities. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That's cool. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for you.
I'm excited for you too. I know you got to go. You got a class.
Yeah, I do. I have to go to
You
pottery.
gotta drive to pottery class. It's not funny. It's awesome.
Listen, I am a 43-year-old perimenopausal woman who's trying to find herself through clay.
Whatever you got to do. We talked a little bit before we started rolling on the podcast. It's got to be one of those things. You got to be very centered and like mindful of what you're doing. You can't be all willy-nilly off in a no man's land.
I think that's why I like it for the mindfulness aspect of it, because you have to pay attention.
Yeah.
You know how many times we're just like looking at our phones now while we're doing things like what? Driving? Like we can't even give enough attention to driving. That we're like, oh, I'm bored. I'm going to look at my phone.
It's
You can't do that with clay.
my favorite part of my day is when I don't have my phone around me.
Yeah. It's good.
My favorite part of my day. And sometimes I go hours.
Really?
I know people hate it because I have my phone on silent all the time.
Yeah.
And then I have my notifications on, so I can't even see who's messaging me. And I just don't pay attention to any messages at all
You
for
must
hours.
be so much happier.
Yep.
Yeah. That's good.
Yep.
I
Yep.
tried. I put mine on airplane mode for this conversation.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So there you go.
I did
Time
not.
to land the plane.
I did not. I heard it buzzing a couple times. It was irritating me. Christal, this was really awesome
This
to have
was
you on.
really fun. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, I appreciate you making the drive.
I love it. This is great. I'm going to go check out the Cadillac Home Depot.
Oh,
see if they have
exciting.
any-
That's adult exciting.
Clearance Halloween stuff because I'm
Yeah.
obsessed.
I'm going to make sure this gets up on YouTube and Spotify.
Oh,
And no commenters on the live stream, but that's okay. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, you better start commenting, people, or he's going to break it down.
It's only on the live stream. I expect nobody to watch this thing live ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
But
I
it'll
never
happen
know.
someday.
Yeah, it will.
It will.
It will.
You know, it'll happen someday.
Anytime. Well, Smitty, thanks so much.
Christal, you are awesome. I appreciate you. And let's keep in touch. I want to know what you're up to. And let me know when that podcast hits and everything.
Will
okay?
do.
All right. Thank you, Christal. And to everybody else, please like and subscribe and all the things. And that's it.
Look, it's you.
That's it. Nope.
So long, sucker.
Good night, everybody!
I'm so sorry for everything that has happened.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, all right. I'll see you guys there.
By the bar and get your face, huh? Get me paid, bitch!
Sit, boo-boo, sit. Good dog.
I love y'all very much. Peace out!
Good night, ladies.
What the hell? Everything!